How you doing, guys? Lou is here, back with a podcast. Today we have a special guest. His name is Julian Bermudez. He is a musician who, interestingly enough, he worked for Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch for a very long time, for almost 10 years. And he was amidst the controversy of the cancellation of Bud Light. So I'm very excited to talk about that. Before I introduce him, I want to talk about what we're going to be talking today. Today we're going to be doing it a little bit different. From now on, we're going to be talking about topics that are going on right now, and then we're going to be hitting those topics. That way you guys know what's going on in the news. So other than the Bud Light controversy, which I'm very, very excited to speak about from somebody in the actual department when it happened, we're also going to be talking today about the earthquake that happened in New York today in the morning. Biden visiting the collapsed bridge. I know some of you aren't excited about that. Some colleges will soon charge $100,000 a year. How did this happen? This is a New York Times article, which is not surprising, but again, you guys will see. There's also outrage over slaying aid workers deepens democratic resistance to arming Israel. That's another hot topic. Mayorkas warns that Haitians crossing to the U.S. by sea will be returned. FBI examining free airfare upgrades received by Mayor Eric Adams. That's another one very, very interesting. The mayor of mayor of New York is now being investigated by the FBI. Trump media stock sinks to post-merger low after he put Truth Social public. They hit the jackpot. How some burglary tourists use visa waivers to target luxury homes. That's another
interesting.
Okay. Very good one. The Rock explains why he's not endorsing Biden this time, how he feels about the election, and woke culture. And lastly, bat-wielding homeowner catches porch pirate by setting trap.
What in the world?
It's an exciting, exciting little clip there. So, without any more introduction, Julian, welcome to the show. Do you like being called Julian or Julian?
Julian is fine.
Julian is fine.
Julian in Spanish, but we'll stick to Julian for today. Yeah.
So I don't want to. I never like to butcher introductions. So I kind of like to let you introduce yourself. What exactly is your experience professionally? What are you doing right now? And anything you want to tell the people right now.
Yeah. So actually, you're catching me right now at a very interesting snapshot in life. I'm in the middle of transitioning from one sphere of work to another. And of course, we all know that's a euphemism for I just got laid off. So I was working for Anheuser-Busch, which we all know has been, under a lot of controversy these last year or so with the whole Bud Light thing and all that. Locally, I worked for a couple of local breweries, so we were kind of removed from that. And fortunately, at least in a direct way, people were not like relating us directly to like, oh, you guys are, with Bud Light. So I didn't deal with that whole kind of thing, but just the overall impact to like the whole organization definitely trickled down to us eventually, which is...
So you weren't working on the Bud Light team. What team were you working on?
Yeah, so I worked for a smaller team called Miami Craft. Essentially, we were the commercial team for Vesisser Brewing Company and for the now defunct Wynwood Brewing Company. Two local breweries here in Miami, two craft breweries. And I was our experiential coordinator. Essentially, I handled all of our, events out in the community. I hired our team of brand ambassadors and basically was like the official face of both of those brands, so to speak. And yeah, the Bud Light controversy, it really eventually hit home, so much so that I was recently laid off. And
do you think you were laid off as a consequence of that directly from the marketing perspective? Or just, they lost so much money and, we have to make cuts because how do we keep this afloat?
I think that's exactly it. For the organization that I was working with, Miami Craft, and our breweries, we were just like a really small, blip on the radar, in the corporate world. And I think eventually they were like, we really need to, level out our balances here, and make sure that we're, cutting any losses. And, these were brands that AB was initially investing in. So we were still waiting for them to actually turn their profit. And eventually they were just like, it's not worth it anymore with all the money we just lost on Bud Light. And so that's how that's how I'm pretty sure this all came about. Of course, I'll never know exactly what happened
No, you're
up
gonna
in
get
New
the
York.
corporate response. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But that seems to be the general consensus between me and some of the other people that I was working with. So
How was the culture and Anheuser-Busch before and after the whole scandal?
Well, I can't really speak to Anheuser-Busch directly, just because we really did operate mostly independently.
Yeah.
I will definitely say that on our end, we definitely took home the lesson right away. Like, know your audience. Do not betray your base. Fundamentally, I mean, that is so important. And really, we really just learned to like examine what it is we're putting out there, to the public face. So, I mean, for us, it wasn't like we had a cultural change, but it was just something that there was definitely a marked sense of like before and after, because of the way it hit us financially. Our budget started getting cut and stuff like that, like budget we already had for that given year, So things like that changed for us. And I wouldn't say it was so much like the same impact it would have been for AB up in corporate, the corporate offices up in New York.
I still find it, like interesting, because it's definitely a study. It's like a case study for like the whole, woke movement and brands trying to, adjust themselves to that crowd.
Yeah.
And, I've been seeing that a lot on the news. Not only Bluelight, Planet Fitness went through like a fiasco a couple of weeks ago. So Planet Fitness, again, to the woke culture, right? So the woke culture right now is very associated with like the gender ideology.
Sure, yeah.
The pronouns. And so what Planet Fitness did was, there was a woman who went to one of their gyms in Alaska, and she found a man naked in the woman's bathroom. And getting naked in front of a 12-year-old girl in the corner of the locker room, right?
Yeah, no.
She went to management and complained. And instead of like kicking out the man, they ended up kicking her out, cancel her membership, and they've doubled down. Saying that for them it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. You want to identify yourself as a fish, and there's a fish tank. Go ahead.
That is absolutely absurd, especially the fact that there was children involved like that. No, I didn't hear about that, but I mean, these kind of stories they seem to be popping up every week. And I don't know. It feels very, even if I was in the woke community, I would almost feel like it's like you're just pandering to me. Like, it just seems like these companies are just like, oh, look at us, we're in with it.
It's always going to be like that regardless, because every company, especially the big ones, you're always trying to find that, how do I acquire a little more market pace, place, when I'm already like this huge. It's like, how does Coca-Cola keep growing?
Yeah.
We always have this thing in the industry of business is, any business that stops growing stops existing. That's how it works.
Yeah, sure.
So I think it's just a result of just them trying to make, not necessarily more money, just trying to stay afloat when you're this big giant already,
Yeah, just kind of maintaining market share and continuing to grow.
And then you're like, well, my audience base is already there. Let me see who else I can add on the team. And I think that's the thinking behind it, but it's a mistake.
Yeah, and also like, is this really the theme that you want to be growing by? Like, is it realistically? It affects such a small number of people, but it's been grown to such a huge awareness, But it's like, I don't know if that's really.
It's like the Biden thing. Did you see the Easter fiasco?
No, I didn't.
Dude, I tell everybody, you guys need to be on X or on Twitter. If you guys just like itchy me. Let's put it like that in the Cuban sense, right? So like the gossip, right? Like Twitter is all about that, man. I literally feel like sometimes I'm just like a kid, just like sitting back watching people just dump each other and dunk each other. That's Twitter. And yeah, so it's kind of the same thing, right? So on Easter Sunday, the Biden, I say Biden because you can tell it wasn't him, as his team running it.
Right.
They posted like a happy Easter thing in the morning, and then like 4 or 5 hours, happy transgender visibility day, and people just went crazy.
Oh my God.
How are you going to do this? It's Easter Sunday. It's a religious day. The thing is, I will say this to be fair, the day was already established like 8-9 years ago. But again, we're talking about pick your audience, pick your target, pick your timing. Right. Maybe skip transgender visibility day this Easter Sunday.
Yeah, if it's landing on Easter, I mean, come on.
what do you think about that right now? Like what's going on with the transgender community and just the way it seems like you just be pushed in our face.
Well, I want to say, like, first and foremost, I do think that there really are transgender people, and and I have sympathy for them, really. But I think you should be able to live your life the way you want to live it. But I also think it's like a very small and marginal community, and oftentimes kind of like militant in their approach towards the way that we have our discourse about them. But also just the discourse itself is so blown up compared to how small the community is that's the part that really confuses me, And I feel like there's a lot of discussion about such a small community. And while they should have their rights and should be, afforded like proper respect, like any human being should be, I think that, like I said, the discourse is really way too much in the public sphere about it. Like, I don't understand why it's become such a hot topic to discuss.
Well, for me, it's usually, I have this saying where it's just when something doesn't make sense, somebody's making money from it. So that's usually how it works. It's like when we talk about very divisive topics like abortion, transgenderism, immigration. I feel like every time those topics are put into the atmosphere, it's on purpose. It's to divide. And so we spend time talking about that, and not the fact that the government uses our taxpaying money to literally wash money and make themselves super, super rich. Right now, I don't know if most people know this, but like if you want to become super rich, all you gotta do is get elected into Congress. That's it. I have never seen so many people go to Congress and start making a couple $100,000, and then within 2 or 3 years, all these people are multi-millionaires. It's almost like a coincidence, It's like
I think I heard something recently about there was like a fund you could invest to that was like an index of what congressmen are investing in.
Yeah.
So like just to make sure you're tracking with them, and I was like, there's
a couple
ridiculous.
Different accounts on X. One's like Quiver, I believe it's called, and the other one's a very famous one, Nancy Pelosi trading.
That may have been what I heard about.
Yeah, where it's literally like an account that just follows Nancy Pelosi's trading habits, and they're up like 60-70%.
Amazing.
How does a congressperson
get me in there?
You can actually do it. It's crazy. I've thought about doing it. I don't know about the regulations or whatever, but if they can do it, why the hell not?
Right, exactly.
So before we get into the topics, I want to talk a little bit more about you. Like, what are you doing right now with your project? And I know you told me you had a band.
So I don't remember if we had mentioned this before the cameras were on or not, but we just released a single. My band is Lotus Collective, by the way. You can find us on Spotify just like that. Also at Lotus Collective Music on Instagram. But yeah, our latest single, Agüita de Coco, we released last month. And it's been a huge success for us. We decided to change up some of the things we were doing with like our marketing and PR behind it. And the main thing that's really been a game changer is shifting our focus from Instagram to Spotify, and we're using services like Playlist Push, which is allowing us to directly target playlist curators. So people who already have well-established playlists on Spotify and stuff like that. And basically, these people are going to, only select songs that fit the vibe of their playlist, which for us has meant showing us to people who already like similar artists. And the growth has been amazing. I mean, we went from like literally a measly like 34 monthly listeners to, when I checked last night, we were at 2,899.
Nice, man. Congratulations.
So almost a tenfold increase, and it's organic. It's the kind of people who like our music. It's not just like, some weird little bot listen, here or there, which has been really, really, really rewarding, to be putting in this amount of work and finally like starting to see like that organic kind of payoff. That's been really exciting.
So, and the crazy thing is you're just starting. So wait until like a year or 2 years.
And besides that, like I mentioned earlier in my earlier in our discussion today, I got laid off and all that kind of stuff. So I've also just been really like pursuing gigs, just generally, also outside of my band, just as a freelance piano player. And I've been doing some teaching and stuff like that. But interestingly enough, I got like the craziest gig opportunity that I never would have been able to accept if I was still employed, nor would I have even reached out about it in the first place. But there's another piano player who sometimes is my substitute in my band, and who admittedly I at one point kind of saw him as like my competitor, as we were both trying to get into the same band at the same time. And we ended up being very good friends, and we have a lot of shared musical tastes and ideas, and we're always showing each other stuff on the piano and whatnot. But he called me. He was like, "Hey, I saw you're looking for more work as a musician." He's like, "I'm gonna put some feelers out for you." And like literally the next day, I get a call from a vocalist. She's like, "Hey, do you want to come and do a 2-week stint on a cruise with me? It's all expenses paid. You get paid $3,500. You get treated like a guest. Nice. We're gonna go to Spain and like all these different ports. Food is free." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Absolutely.
Free vacation?
Yeah. So that is just the coolest thing that's happened to me since then. It's come with its own challenges too, because I mean this girl has like, her repertoire is like over 600 songs. So I've just been nonstop shedding and learning music and finding the music and stuff like that. But it's good. It's challenging me in a musical way, which is something that just like in a professional sense, not that my music is not a professional thing, but it's a very similar thing. Like artists need to be challenged too. And sometimes you have these kind of challenges that are imposed on you by like if you get commissioned for an art piece, or if you get like called for a gig, it's like, you got to learn this now, So
and how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 28.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're 28. Do you think maybe getting laid off is possibly like a silver lining of you now having this time to actually, go and explore
100%.
These things that you were otherwise to be like, I have to pay bills,
Yeah, man. 100%. And it's like, I still have to pay bills. But where I never believed I could have done it strictly through music, I'm slowly starting to see that it actually, I can. And there's people like me who are doing it. And it's a very real possibility, but it's not like the easy or the safe route. Like it's really like, when you're working that like 9 to 5 for a big corporation, and there's like that sense of security, and it's nice and it feels good. But at the same time, like there is not really that same level of challenge and that same level of like, I need to go forward with this. Like I have to keep going, keep pushing. And the fact that I'm getting to do that and also do that within like my lifelong passion of music and playing the piano is incredible. It's not that it's easy. It's not that it's super comfortable. It's actually really scary. I mean, I've been dealing with some of that as well, but I know it's going to be rewarding in the end. And it's just about the daily grind and showing up and practicing and not saying no to awesome opportunities. So yeah, well, man, definitely a silver lining.
Congratulations. And
thank you.
And hopefully this is just the beginning. That way, when you do make it big, I always tell everybody, invite me at least once.
Yeah, I'm going to be directing people back to the early Love and Lou podcast for sure.
So one of the things I wanted to try today, like I said, guys, is touch on some topics. So today in the morning, there was an earthquake in New York. This has been literally all over the news. George, I don't know if you can pop it up. Can we hear like videos if you pop it up on TV, or it's not linked?
I don't know. Let me check.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it this morning, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And I was rushing onto my phone, and I was like, "Am I going to see like skyscrapers moving back?" And I didn't really feel like it was
a magnitude
4.8.
But I do have like a funny story, and George put it up on the screen. It is. So, like it says,
"Oh no!"
Man in Pennsylvania was getting a vasectomy as earthquake struck and rocked the operating table. Everything was shaking. Can you imagine if you're getting some kind of work done, down there, and next thing you know, the surgeon slips. It didn't happen, but I'm saying it could happen, and hits you. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. One of the things that we would have constant in New York
is that the guy there?
That's the guy. Yeah.
Oh my god, bro. Yeah, that would be terrifying. That would be absolutely.
I mean,
terrifying.
now it makes sense why he wants to do that. I mean,
okay, yeah, his
he
wife
already has a couple
here.
in the oven. That's it. We're done. But that was a big deal. A lot of stuff doesn't go on in New York, and I feel like this just adds to the general problem. New York has been everywhere in the news lately, especially with the immigration issues. You're an immigrant too, right? Or you were born here?
No, I'm actually third generation. Yeah, so
third generation.
My parents are both born here as well. My grandparents were from all over, actually. But
yeah, so you're Cuban and Colombian.
Cuban, Colombian, Mexican, and Spanish.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. That's right. Yeah, that's every ingredient in sofrito right there.
And it's sofrito. But New York has been having one of those problems which is immigration. Everybody's moving over there. And some of the immigrants even ended up in the news after they punched a cop and was arrested and literally left on bail without. Another immigrant actually recently went viral on the news after he posted how to get a free house. So yeah, in New York they have these weird squatter laws,
Right.
where, for example, if your house is unoccupied, I can just come in, move in, put up a fake document like a lease, like you made it, and now you as a homeowner have to sue me and take me to court just to get me out of the house.
Like, just like that? Is
Let's
there
say
like
you-
a period of time where you have to be in there? Like, okay, you're squatting there for like a week or a month or
It's
6
supposed
months?
to be at least 2 months,
Okay.
so 60 days. But how do you
Still,
prove
like-
it?
Right, yeah.
You know, so let's say if you go on a long vacation and I watch you and then I just come in and you come back, I change the locks, I make up this fake lease. Now all of
my
a sudden
God.
you have to sue me, take me to court to prove that I am the owner of the house. It's just fucking crazy.
I don't even understand, like, do you know like the origins of these laws? Like what purpose the squatter law served initially? Because it's kind of like an absurd law to me.
I think the most part when they do these laws is to give some of the power away from just like these tenants that are just kind of abusive, and you know you have to tomorrow pay me or else I'll kick you out.
Right.
And so usually when these laws get created, it's for the benefit of the person that's seen as the weaker, you know.
Right.
So the person who has to pay rent, you know, and so but what ends up happening is people abuse it.
Right.
You know, and we don't have this problem in Florida. I'll tell you that. I've actually seen a couple of videos of the sheriff saying, if you have a squatter in your house, you know, if we get to your house, please make sure they're dead by the time we get there. Just shoot them. You know, that way there's no discussion. You know, we know what happened. It's such a contrast. And that's one of the things, you know, you as a musician, are you traveling just here locally or are you going everywhere?
Typically it's we keep it pretty local. I mean, we'd like to start going and traveling a lot, but so far it's just been local, like building our community, besides my little cruise ship gig coming up. Yeah. But
Well, when you do start traveling, it's one of the things that I highly recommend people. You really get like a different perspective. We went to New York, 4 or 5 months ago already? 4 or 5 months ago? More? He had never been to New York, so I wanted to show him, you know, just a piece of paradise, how nice it is. And he says he never wants to go back ever again.
Really?
You know, because New York has never changed. People think it's bad now. It used to be. It's always been bad. You know, the difference now, it's like maybe it's a little bit worse. But
in what sense? Me personally, I haven't been to New York since I want to say 2017 or 2018. But there are elements of that city, though I could never live there, that I really do like. That I really do like, especially like neighborhoods like Bushwick and Bed-Stuy are full of musicians and artists and like-minded people, and it's really mostly about that, which I think is why anybody puts up in New York in the first place. There are very, very interesting communities of people out there.
yeah, I think that's what people like New York. I mean, for me, growing up as a teenager over there, it was like the liberty, and I could just get in a train with my friends and just go anywhere. I can go to a ballpark,
Public transit.
go see the Mets, go see the Yankees on a weekend. You know, we just go, you know?
Yeah.
Over here, you don't have that. Public transportation is awful in Florida. You know, so that was really what it is. But there's always been homeless people everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
There's always been vagrants. There's always been like crime. You know, like I almost got mugged in New York as
Really?
a teenager with a guy with a knife. I ended up running. He didn't catch me.
Shit.
You know, but it's not like unlikely to get robbed or somebody look at you the wrong way.
Right, yeah.
Or, you know, it's like part of the culture over there. The problem that we have right now is that now drugs are really, really, really making it worse because now you literally see zombies in the street. Like people like high on, I don't know if they're using heroin or what, but literally like half asleep in the street.
Yeah, I wonder if that's kind of similar to what's going on in LA. LA gets all the attention in San Francisco as well. All the zombies and
I really think it's a drug issue, man. If we could eliminate the drugs that really mess people up, like crack, heroin, you know, meth. Yeah, I really don't think we would have this problem. You never see people on weed doing that shit.
That's true. Yeah.
You never see even alcoholics doing that shit either. You know?
No. Yeah. I don't know if there's an easy fix to that problem.
I think there is.
Yeah. What do you think it is?
Law.
Yeah.
You know, enforcing the law. That's as simple as that. I mean, there's always a balance, right? You don't want to be like, oh, too much law because then you can become like a dictator in that sense, you know? But if you give too much freedom to people are gonna mess up and do stupid stuff. It's life. You have usually a small group of people are willing to just I don't care and destroy everything,
Right.
and that's the people who mess it up for everybody else.
Mm.
So if you don't have like a consequences, like good law, I'm just gonna do whatever the hell I want.
True. But I think it's more about the enforcement of the law than it is about having the law, because we have the laws. Like these things are illegal.
I agree.
So, and then it's a matter of like, is it really that enforceable? I mean, how much law enforcement would it take to really crack down on that problem to the point where it's not possible to get in with illegal activity, you know, to actually bring the drugs in and all that kind of stuff. It's a daunting problem.
Yeah.
It's not an easy one.
I'm not saying it's easy, but there's definitely a fix. You can definitely fix it.
I'm wondering if you've ever heard of the what they've done in Portugal. They kind of took the complete flip response where they just decided, okay, we're going to make everything legal, but we're going to treat the addicts as people who are suffering from disease. And rather than focusing all the attention to getting the drugs off the streets, it's like we're going to actually make them legal, and then we're going to treat the actual people themselves who are addicts so that they don't want to be addicts in the first place. Rather than so.
How did that work?
From my understanding, it's worked out pretty well, but I'm no expert in the subject, to be honest.
I mean, I see a couple of case studies,
but it's definitely it's worth something to take a look at.
They've already done it though. They've done it here in Oregon. They tried it.
Oh yeah, I did see that, and they got rid of it. Yeah,
a shit show. Everybody ended up. More people ended up getting high. Surprise, surprise. And a lot of the
so I wonder then
like these safe zones where they can go shoot up were just like literally not even taken care of. It just hyper extended like the use. They just did it even more.
Yeah. And there's of course always, you know, the cultural differences, you know, what solution might have worked for the Portuguese may not work for people in Oregon and stuff like that.
Yeah, I disagree. I really think the drug problem is a problem of not seeing people as part of your family. And that's why I think the cultural issue happens here in America. Like when you go to like Arab countries, when you go to like really united countries like Japan, I went to UAE, those places where it's like a family, you know. Yeah,
where the family unit is a very important part of the
the and there's consequences to not you know, that stuff doesn't happen over there.
Yeah, that's true.
I think over here I always tell people, don't be too tolerant that you become stupid. You know, there's only so much you can be tolerant of. If you tolerate everything, you stand for nothing.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So I think that's what's going on here, and in part why Florida is such a great place to live right now is because we have all these laws that allow us to just be free and happy and, you know, go on our business.
Right. Yeah. It was especially noticeable during COVID, where, I mean, man, the number of times I heard people talk about, oh, lockdown was this and lockdown was so bad. And I was like, dude,
lockdown was great.
I was like, I don't remember anything being bad
I went to the zoo
at all.
I went to the zoo like every week.
Yeah,
you know, that's one of the few things I will miss about COVID. It's just like you would go somewhere and you were just like you with like maybe 2 or 3 other people.
Dude, it was incredible. I got super into cycling in that time, and there was nobody on the roads because people were still kind of scared about going out. So man, I was doing like 70 miles a week at least, just riding everywhere. It was so much fun.
Hey, we can't have that anymore, especially in Miami.
No.
Miami's.
I call that the last great, like, even though I wasn't in high school, it was like the last great high school summer vacation, you know? I was already well past college at that point, but it had that feeling of like, you know, we're in between 11th and 12th grade, hanging out with our friends, you know?
I remember they sent us home for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I was like, okay, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And it was basically, I would just hang out with my family, my kids, but eventually it just became an issue. So let's talk about some of the topics.
Go Florida.
Go Florida, 100%. So Biden visits collapsed bridge. I want you to pull this up, George. So I don't know, Julian, if you saw this in the news, about a week ago, bridge collapsed in Baltimore.
Yeah, I saw this.
And it was like all over the news. People were making like this huge deal, like if it was a conspiracy theory, like if we were hacked. And this was like an infrastructure. I don't think there's any of that. I think it's just like shit happens, right? Accidents happen.
Yeah.
What I do find interesting is the article itself is, like it says, Marine One flies over the wreckage after the administration announced more than $60 million in funds to get the port back open, and could cost up to $2 billion to clean it up and fix Francis key bridge.
$2 billion.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays everything's like inflated, you know.
Yeah.
Anything, especially a bridge. But I find it funny, like, you know, like, yeah, we're going to fix it. And, you know, all this comes from our money, from our tax dollars.
Where else?
You know, and one of the things Biden, like, really campaigned when he was campaigning in 2020 was this big package where he wanted to, I don't want to say redo, he wanted to fix up the infrastructure of the country, the bridges, the roads, you know, that was his whole thing. And here we are with this major bridge that just collapsed by just getting hit on one of the pillars. And meanwhile, we keep having these aid packages to Ukraine, to Israel. You know, it feels kind of like, you know, like very reactionary. Like,
yeah, or even how about when the island in Hawaii was completely engulfed in flames?
Dude, we never even heard of that story after like a week after that.
Yeah,
like, what happened there?
And those people only got like, I think those families received something like $500 or $700 a person. Meanwhile, like you said, we're spending God knows how much money in Ukraine.
Because politics is a business right now, man.
And it's brutal. I mean, there's definitely something to be said about, you know, there is an importance in, you know, in showing ourselves on the international sphere that way. But I'm not sure if what we're doing in Ukraine is the right way to do that. You know, obviously everybody wants that war to end. And it's not going to end just by continuing to pour money and pour weapons into Ukraine. I think I'm scared to see like it's another situation where it's like, all right, we're going to be there in 2035.
Like Afghanistan.
2035 comes around, and guess what? We're still, you know, sending weapons, and who's making money off of that, right? Lockheed Martin and whoever's making whoever the arms manufacturers. Right, exactly.
That becoming the board of executives on their boards.
It's like, oh no, we pulled out of Afghanistan. What are we going to do now?
No, because coming from a corporate world, I understand how these big businesses really work. And is basically they have a budget, right? The government works like this. So let's say I have a budget for a military of $1 trillion. If all of a sudden I pulled out of Afghanistan, right? And well, now it's not $1 trillion anymore. Now it's maybe $600 billion.
How am I going to justify?
What do I do with a $400 billion? And so they're not just nice enough. They're like, look, we're a country, we're nice. $400 billion, okay. Let's reduce our deficit, you know? No, we got to do something with that $400 billion. Or else we're going to lose that funding. That's how the government works. We have a funding, and you either meet the necessity for the funding or we remove it. And that's what they do. And so now they've found a new war to be able to find that extra money to use it. And that's what's happening right now, basically.
So what do you think should have happened if Russia invaded Ukraine, and should we just have let it happen?
Well, I mean, it depends. What do you mean by we should let it happen?
I mean, does the U.S. not get involved? I mean, I think the U.S. was going to end up getting involved in that no matter what, in some way or another.
Yeah, but one of the things that the reason why I personally I like Trump as a negotiator is he uses every opportunity as a leverage point, right? That's what great negotiators use. So if Russia would have started invading Ukraine, you know, and they wanted Ukraine and the U.S. doesn't want to give them Ukraine, we'll find out something else we can negotiate so they can get the hell out of there. There's something else they might want.
Right.
But if it's just like, you know what, you're not going to have it and you're wrong and I'm right, it's like the same thing that happens with arguments. If you're right and I'm right and nobody's wrong, we're going to fight. You know, so this seems like an opportunity for something else, both ways.
Right.
So if I don't want to negotiate with you and I want to keep the war, there's an opportunity there. There's a reason why I want the war to continue. Right. You know, if there's a war, I don't want the war, and I negotiate against it, well, there's an opportunity to get something back. You know, it's like when they did the, I don't know if you saw this, but when we were negotiating with Russia, Brittany Griner, you know who Brittany Griner is?
Yeah, she was the Olympian, right? That they detained her.
Yeah, the WNBA player who smoked weed in Russia.
She supposedly had a weed vape on her,
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, who knows?
It's her laws. At the end of the day, you have to respect the laws of the country, you know. But we gave up an international arms dealer for a WNBA player. You know, like I can name more college basketball kids that get more clicks and views than a WNBA player. Yeah. Caitlin Clark, who'll probably get more views. I don't know if you know who she is. Caitlin Clark is
I do not. No.
she's a very famous women's college basketball player.
Okay.
They call her the next Steph Curry. Literally.
Okay.
She's that good.
Damn.
I'm vouching for her. She's that good at shooting.
Caitlin Clark, you said. I'm going to have to check her
Caitlin
out.
Clark.
Okay.
She's that good. And yeah, we gave up an international arms dealer named, what was his name? Like the Merchant of Death. I think that was his nickname, his moniker.
Of course.
For a WNBA player.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to like priorities. What exactly are we trying to do? And
No, I mean, I'm sure that looked good in the press. You know, like, oh, we got our
In the press?
darling, our darling, basketball player back. You know, yay.
who watches WNBA? I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. I guess you're right. Yeah.
And every time I say this, people get mad at me because they're like, oh, it's unfair that women don't get represented in sports. Where are the women like taking their shirts off, painting themselves in body paint? Let's go. It just doesn't happen, girls. You guys are watching something else.
Yeah. There's definitely not the same amount of fervor and
They don't
fandom.
care.
Yeah.
Like women care about about the Kardashians, about makeup, about fashion. They don't care about sports. It's the truth.
Yeah.
So of course, you're going to be underrepresented, because you don't care about sports. Anyways, that's always one of those things.
Very incongruent trade.
I saw on your resume that you went to FIU.
I went to Florida State, actually.
Sorry, FSU.
Yeah.
FSU.
Yeah.
Did you go there on like a scholarship, or did you pay?
No, I paid. Actually, I was fortunate to have my first 2 years of undergrad paid for. I went to, gonna shout out to MDC Honors College here in Miami. Yeah, that's an amazing program that I was fortunate to be accepted into. So they paid my first 2 years, and then I went to Florida State, and I had like Pell Grant, and I had some scholarships as well, but I had to pay some out of pocket for that.
Do you have like student loans or no?
I do.
You still do?
Chipping away slowly but surely. Yeah. Thankfully, not as bad as many of my peers.
Yeah, because a lot of those, like the rate they give you, if it's as high, you're basically in debt forever.
Yeah.
Well, I asked you that is, that's one of the issues that people have right now, where college seems to be way too expensive for what you get out of it. Can you pull up the article? So one of the articles I want to talk about today is some colleges will soon charge $100,000 a year. How did this happen? It's a New York Times article. As a parent already of 3 people, and as a person who went to college and dropped out, I don't know if the value of college is really there anymore. As far as like you being able to have a well-paying job as soon as you graduate, other than if you're like a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer, but if you go for like school for business, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
If you go to school for music, okay.
Right.
If you go to school for arts, okay. If you go to school for communication, okay.
Yeah. This is something I spent a lot of time post-graduation thinking about, because so I got my degree in international affairs. And I had this very lofty idea of what that would mean for me, leaving with a bachelor's degree, like, oh, I'm going to go work for the State Department and all this kind of stuff. And really there's a lot more that goes into it than that. And, me being like the first in my family to go to college, nobody really ever explained to me, like, this is like what you have to do. It's not just about going and doing the classes, but you got to get your internships and you make sure that you make the right connections with people. All that was completely, I was oblivious to that.
Does it feel like it's just like a fantasy they're trying to sell you? Does it feel like we're being sold something?
And very much, yeah, it was like that. It really, I didn't feel like it set me up for anything in the real world at all. But that being said, it's not worth the amount of money that it cost me, but a lot of times just having like, okay, I can say that I have a bachelor's degree has gotten me like a foot in the door where maybe I otherwise wouldn't have had it. Or at least giving me an edge over other applicants. Like when I first got the AB job, for example, I know that the person that I was going up to, there was 2 of us that were mainly being considered, and the other person didn't have a bachelor's degree. And
that was a determining factor.
Wasn't that important to me, to be honest. I mean, it didn't really mean too much for me, but it did look good to the employer. There's still like that lag in mindset. So I don't know how long that's going to last. But
even me, whenever I'm doing interviews, if I see you have a bachelor's or a master's, that won't be my deciding factor, but it'll definitely be something where it'll be in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
So if I like the person, it'll justify why I should pick that person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I usually pick on merit and energy, and if I think the person has the tools to actually do the job. You can have a master's, you can have a PhD. If we have a dull conversation and I don't think you're the person, I'll take somebody who doesn't have anything.
Sure, and I'm sure you've met people with master's degrees. You're like, I don't know about you and all that. Like, do you have a master's degree? You know, like,
I know doctors that you're like, how the hell you're a doctor?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a very real scenario, and I'm sure it's only going to get worse with AI now and people using that crazy, or using it a lot to cheat now on assignments and stuff. Don't know how much people are really learning. It's a little concerning.
So I think it's concerning for me as a parent. Like if I see that I have to pay $100,000 per kid a year.
That's absurd. $100,000. My gosh.
It's just like, you know what? I'll take the $100K. Instead, go learn a trade, and we'll use that money to start your business.
Yeah.
Right? To start selling, to start making connections. And I promise you in 2 or 3 years, you'll have $500,000 to $1 million.
I tell you what, your kids are going to be set for success.
That's the way I feel, because that's exactly what happened to me. Because, I was supposed to be a doctor. My dad's a doctor. My brother's a doctor. My cousins are doctors. So I was supposed to be a doctor.
Wow. Very esteemed lineage. I like it.
And that's not the case. I was like, what the hell am I doing here,
Yeah.
And then I was given a chance to become an insurance agent, start selling, start learning how to actually, build up a business, how to do, relate to the insurance companies, to relate to the providers, relate to the clients. And that, as I literally tell everybody, I went to college selling insurance. That was my college.
Yeah, man.
And so when I see this, it's just like, more than ever, I am, unless my sons or my daughter wants to be a doctor or a lawyer or engineer, I'm not paying for your college.
For sure.
I
see here that it says Vanderbilt. I'm sure the kids going to Vanderbilt, their parents might be able to afford the $100,000 a year, but
is Vanderbilt a private school?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. I'd rather invest that money into like a 401k or some kind of like a safe bond. Just leave it there, and they'll be doing better.
I do definitely wish, man, that I took some time, at least after high school, to figure out, like, do I really want to go to college? And like, at the very least, what do I really want to study? That was the one thing. So I don't fully regret it. And it's definitely worth it to some extent, but do it as cheaply as possible if you're going to do it. If it is worth it for you, as cheap as you can get it, that's the way to go.
I just think some people don't understand that.
And it's not for
that
everybody.
Money can go somewhere else, and you can really, really take off.
Yeah, nobody knows about that. Nobody knows.
Do you think most people don't know about that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just speaking anecdotally, from like all the kids that I was in high school with, I don't know how many of us had business-oriented parents. Most of us was like, the same old thinking of like, of their grandparents' generation. Like, okay, you go and you get a good job and you work hard and you save your money and you keep putting in your hours and you keep saving, and it's like, and you put away your nest egg and then you can retire. Like, that's the narrative that most people know. Like, that's what most people are aware of. Think about it. I mean, how many people really are business owners? It's a smaller class of people, and most people don't have those mentalities. But it's available to everybody. You don't have to be even like some crazy, brilliant savant to start a successful business.
Dude,
and people
I know
don't realize
some of the
that.
dumbest people who are millionaires. Dumbest.
Yeah,
but
man.
They just have had a good idea. They wake up every day, work hard, and they're just consistency.
Grind,
Consistency is hell. And that's really where I see the difference. If you can be consistent in anything, within 3 to 5 years, you just become a monster, because nobody is willing to do that for that long.
Yeah, I've never started a business or anything, but that's definitely something that I've learned through music. I mean, when you sit down at an instrument every day and it's like 10 days in, you're like, okay, I mean, I don't really see that much difference. But then that starts adding up, and it's like, oh, like, listen to this recording from 2 years ago and listen to me now. And it's like, you really see that everyday work, like, in a very tangible way. So you're right. It applies to a lot of different facets of life.
Hopefully you can create a business with, and start thinking like that. One of the things that I always see, people make a mistake when they're, starting a business or something, is not doing the legwork before. So not reading up on taxes, not reading up on setting up corporations, not reading up on how to alleviate expenses. They just start the business, and the next thing you know, they're drowning. Now I don't know what to do. So a big thing for me is not only what you make, it's extremely helpful is what you lose, how you spending money. And most people in business fail because of that.
Really?
They don't look at how much they spend.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like even from personal finances, you can kind of see that lesson very quickly. I mean, if you spend too much, you're going to run out of money.
But it's also how you spend it with the tax law. If it can be justified as a business expense, there's so much you can learn that it really lowers your tax bracket, it helps you in a lot of ways. That's a different course for a different day.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I highly suggest for people to do. Really read into how to set up your corporation, how does tax law work, what can I use as an expense, what can I put under my company. So a lot of people, for example, like I put my cars under my company, my insurance, my cell phone, anything that I use for work is under my company. It's not under me.
And so you get deductions on all those
100%
things.
deduction.
That's incredible. Wait, on your car too?
100%.
Hell yeah.
If you can justify that you use it for more than 50% for work and not pleasure, it's 100% deductible.
That's brilliant.
You just learned something.
Yeah, that's honestly, that's something that could apply. If you're doing a lot of freelance music, you're driving a lot for gigs and that kind of thing.
And you need insurance for your car, right?
Maybe start an LLC and just write them off.
Does your cell phone, you get calls for work?
Absolutely.
100%. When you go out to eat, are you doing it for work?
Yeah. Man.
Right now, one of the good things Biden did with the tax law is meals are 100% deductible.
Interesting. That's something I'd never heard until you mentioned it now.
Well, there you go.
That's worth knowing. For
So
sure.
one of the books that I love reading, I forgot which one it was right now, but there's this tax book that I even share with you. It's one of the Rich Daddy series books. I'm gonna share it with you later because I don't remember the name right now. But just read that book. It's like about 200 pages, and it's gonna give you more insight than you've ever known in your whole life, and it's gonna set you up. One of the reasons I think I've been so successful is my father has taught me all this. So most people end up learning these. It's not tricks or tips. It's the law late into their 40s, 50s. And at that point, it's just like, all right, you could have had all these years saving 30, 40, 50% in taxes. How much could you have accumulated?
Over the years?
Hundreds of thousands.
That's brutal.
A couple million.
Yeah, man.
So that's just a tip. Anyways.
Yeah, share that book with me for sure.
I've given him a lot of tips. The next subject is outrage over slaying aid workers deepens Democratic resistance to arming Israel. So this is a news that came out, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. Basically, I don't know if you know, it's impossible at this point, but Israel and Palestine are in a war over the attacks on October the 7th.
Right, yeah.
And so what ended up happening the other day was Israel ended up accidentally, they're claiming, to kill, I think it was 7 or 8 workers that were just in the Gaza Strip feeding people.
Oh, were these like Red Cross workers?
Yeah, just like aid workers.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. There's a strong bipartisan.
Jeez.
Down George. So there's an outrage over a strike by the Israel Defense Forces that killed 7 aid workers in Gaza, has supercharged resistance among Congress Democrats to sending arms and fresh military funding to Israel. So they ended up, accidentally killing some of the workers, and this is just kind of more, adding more to a dumpster fire that it already is.
Yeah.
What is your opinion? Even though for me, to be honest, I haven't given an opinion of the Israel-Hamas conflict because I just don't understand the culture enough to just be like, all right, this is wrong and this is wrong.
Right.
For me, killing is wrong regardless. Right? But do you have any Jewish friends or any Muslim friends, anything like that where you can relate and have a...
Yeah, but not that I usually haven't spoken to them about this exactly.
Yeah.
The one guy I'm thinking of, we always talk about music. He's a bass player. But regardless, man, what I will say is like, if as Israel, how can you think that killing all these people in Gaza, like every person you kill is touching another like 9 people. Like that person was somebody's father, somebody's brother, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody's father in particular, then you're going to have a whole new generation of people who are going to grow up automatically hating Israel. Like you took my father and this and that. I don't see how going in there and like really militarily is going to help resolve this conflict unless their plan is total annihilation. But I mean, that's not right. You know what I mean? Like we can't do that.
That's a weird game we play right now in society.
You're just perpetuating this thing. Like it's just going to go on forever. And then on the same token, I mean, Hamas definitely knew what they were doing. You know, going in, creating this attack. It's like, you know, you're poking the beast. Come on. You know, so it's not there's no easy fix to that situation, man.
What I think part of the problem is, as you said, you know, way before social media, if a country or a nation wanted to eliminate another nation, they would just go in and do it, and nobody will find out. Yeah, they will find out that's going on, but you wouldn't have so much access to all this social media being shared of like death and kids being like bombarded. You know, that's one of the things I've seen a lot. Or even on the Israeli side, when they went in there and they mutilated a lot of the people, raped a lot of the women, you know. So since we have so much access to the gruesome, I think it's so much harder nowadays to take over a country or to completely resolve an issue with terrorists, because how do you eliminate everybody that's bad when they're being shielded by people who are deemed good? Yeah.
I mean, in war, it's like, what is the term, you know, casualties, or like, you know, what is the word when you kill people you're not supposed to kill? I forget
casualty of war.
Yeah, the casualties of war. Those are inevitable. Like those are gonna happen. Like war is messy, you know, and it used to be like, you know, some of those things that wouldn't be found out. And I just think the bar has been raised so much higher for like what the public can accept, because it's always in your face. I think that's a good thing, man. Like I would rather it be that way, but definitely, you know, if you want to take the realist approach, it's a lot harder to just go and get things done. But that being said, I mean, if going back on the history of the whole Israel-Palestine thing, I mean, really, the Palestinians were there already, you know, and the Israelis also have a historical claim to the land. So it's not like, you know, it's not like you have a purely an occupying force and an oppressor, although that is the dynamic right now with Israel being bolstered by the West, you know. But yeah, man, it's such a complicated issue. Annihilation is not the key. That's the one thing I want to say.
No, I agree.
Like we can't just get rid of Palestinians. That's a horrible.
There is something to be said about, you know, and I will say this, the Muslim community is one of the communities where I personally, right now, on this day, really respect them. You know, they have shown me, at least from, you know, my personal experience, that there are people who are not only educated, but they're also respectful, they're consistent, and they have a lot of vision. Now, why do I prop them up before I drop the bomb? Because that's part of the problem, right? Israel's kind of like left to solve this problem without anybody else wanting to really do anything about it. So Egypt doesn't want to accept anybody from Palestine. UAE doesn't want to accept anybody from Palestine. Saudi Arabia doesn't want to accept anybody from Palestine. Nobody wants to accept, and none of these Muslim countries want to accept anybody from Palestine. And if we're being logical, I think part of the reason is they're scared to be infiltrated by this mentality of terrorism. And so on one side, you're blaming the conflict on Israel, you know, that they're killing these people, which a lot of it is wrong. But then you're not helping solve the problem. You know, you don't want to accept anybody. You don't want to accept any of these people who are asking for help either.
Yeah. Geopolitically, I think it's helping them in some way to have this flashpoint there, to have this kind of, there is this little point of tension where we can always kind of poke it and always add a little bit of gas to the flame, always to for whatever means somewhere down the line. I'm not super, you know, familiar with the topic to know exactly what those reasons are, but I'd be willing to bet it's very convenient for the major players to have that little flashpoint.
No, I agree.
You know, let's add a little gasoline to this fire.
Let's make sure our funding stays at least $1 trillion, right?
Right, exactly. And I'm sure there's a lot of instances like that. So, but it's not a topic I'm super well read on.
No, so. I mean neither. But I always think it's interesting just to hear people's opinion, because usually the person giving the most opinion is the most uninformed.
Yeah.
So usually the more informed people are usually not willing to say too much. That way they don't kind of put their foot in. And I do have a little bit of a connection with somebody. So one of my ex-workers, her son is actually in the military right now in Israel fighting. He was here. He had just turned 18, and literally he got shipped over there because it was time for him to serve the military. And literally, like a couple months after he was already there, boom, October the 7th.
I'm curious. Was he an American citizen?
He's an American citizen.
That he did it.
His
to get
father is
citizenship?
Israeli. Yeah.
Okay.
And so if you're
there's
even
a
if you're
pathway,
born here,
right? That you can
there's a
serve in the
pathway.
military to become Israeli. Okay, yeah.
Which is another question that's been brought up here in the U.S. A lot of double citizenship with especially Israel double citizenship.
Yeah.
Serve in high positions of our country in the Congress, in the Senate.
Oh, really?
And a lot of people have a problem with that. And I get it.
Yeah,
you shouldn't have dual citizenship if you're directly affecting the decisions that are made in this country. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
either.
I didn't know that was possible.
It is possible.
That is very interesting.
Even more, there was a story. This is already a while ago, but there was a Chinese woman. She's not a congressperson, but it's in California. She ran for a political position in California, and she's not even a U.S. citizen. George, look it up. Chinese woman wins.
And she won?
She won.
You want to talk
she's not even a U.S. citizen, bro. It's like, I one of the things that I
talk about that immigrant work ethic, huh?
Nah, but that's crazy. That's like me being one of these balseros, that I live here, but I spend most of my time in Cuba, and then I run for a position of power in Congress, and I went, what?
And you win.
What?
That's hilarious, man. It's so crazy that to me it's just funny.
I don't know if it was that one. It's somebody in California. I don't think it's in Congress. Because it says Chinese American. No, it's somebody in California, a Chinese woman. She can't even speak English right. I think she only speaks Mandarin. That was another part. Yeah, that was another part. So, oye, mi gente, ¿cómo estamos?
Yeah.
You imagine
but the Mandarin version of that, that's absurd.
And I feel like that's where we are in our country right now.
That sounds like a Futurama
We're
episode.
like, what is reality anymore, man? And that's why I always have these kind of conversations with everybody, and I like to lay everything on the floor.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that question right there, what is reality anymore? That's the big thing. We don't have a shared agreeing or a shared understanding of what reality is anymore. For as Americans, like we don't have like a shared narrative, a shared understanding of our history. Like everybody's fragmented. This group of people sees things like with this slant on it, and this group of people sees it this way. And 50 years ago, I think there was a lot more of a cohesive understanding of like, this is the story of America. And it's that one story. And I think
that's also one of the problems with social media.
Yeah. And
it's really creating way too much like little bubbles.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with the algorithm feeding back into people who are just like-minded.
I purposely follow Democrats and Republicans and independents and people I even like despise on X. Just so I can get like somebody telling me, hey man, you're wrong. Even if I completely disagree with it. Non-citizen Chinese immigrant is sworn in on San Francisco Election Commission. Think about that. A non-citizen in the election committee of a U.S. position of power. It's crazy. Yep.
Xi Jinping must be so proud.
I mean, that's another thing, right?
My goodness.
Where we know a lot of propaganda right now in the U.S. has been, fed by the Chinese because they are our enemies at the end of the day. They fear us and we fear them. Whenever you have too big of powers, you're always like, when's it gonna be? When's it gonna be the day?
We are two big contenders for sure.
And if we know that, why the hell are we allowing this?
That doesn't make any sense.
One of my dreams has always been to be president. I can't. I was born in Cuba. I can definitely. From now on, I'm going to see if I can get sworn in and just speak Spanish.
You can make the election commission at the very least. That's for sure.
In California. I just got to move to California. That's definitely interesting. Anyways, moving on.
That's crazy.
I found this one interesting. This next topic, whereas Mayorkas, I don't know who you know if you know Antonio Mayorkas, warns that Haitians crossing the to U.S. by sea will be returned. So I don't want to get this wrong. Antonio Mayorkas is what exactly is his title in government right now, George? I don't want to. Homeland Security Secretary. There we go. So Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, right? So he is the head of Homeland Security. They're supposed to protect our borders. Basically, just nobody coming in here that shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
I find it kind of like hypocritical that Haitians are trying to get to the country, especially what's going on right now. I don't know if you know what's going on in Haiti.
I mean, I know it's a failed state, but beyond that, is there something more specific? They've had a recent series of presidential assassinations over the last few years, but that's all I know.
So, yeah. You're very, very close. The last event that happened about 3 weeks ago is there had a major outbreak of all prisons in Haiti. They overthrew the government. And now there's a gang leader called, what's his name? He's a cannibal. This is real.
No,
this is again like a reality, right? Where are we? Is this real,
bro?
He's a cannibal. What's his name? George, can you look him up? Cannibal gang leader of Haiti.
Okay.
Is this real? Okay, that's why I love Twitter or X.
Crazy.
He's a leader, right? And so the president of Haiti has not been able to return back to Haiti in fear of being assassinated, and this gang leader who's a cannibal is now ruling the country. So that's why so many of the people in the country are like, we have to leave. Yeah, that's his name. Barbecue. There you go. Barbecue. So Barbecue ended up actually being, he used to be in the special forces for the government. You know how this is.
Dude, that guy looks so menacing. That guy looks terrifying.
I mean, his name is Barbecue. He's literally kills people. He barbecues people and eats them.
This guy's nibbling on your toes as you die.
So imagine you have this guy, right? Now running your country where in any moment they can come kill you, and you're trying to leave that, and Alejandro Mayorkas, who is letting millions of illegal immigrants cross the border. They've even gone as far as to fly people from outside the country here, illegal immigrants. And now you're sending these Haitians who are actually going through some shit and they need help back. It shows like a double standard.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a long-standing double standard there too with, I mean, I'm sure you're very familiar with the wet foot, dry foot policy for Cubans, but it doesn't apply to Dominicans and Haitians as well. There's always been this sort of like, for some reason, this like, we don't want Haitians. Now, the quick, easy explanation is the racial one. Yeah. Of course, everybody always jumps to that, and it could very well be true, but it's like a continuation of that long-standing, like, we don't want you here to Haitians. But like, man, that is a horrible situation. Like, they need to get out of there.
And you know,
maybe they'll be
before Mayorkas even did this. Ron DeSantis already said, if we find you on our beaches, you're out. Like, they're patrolling hard. But it sounds like so hypocritical from this guy because, again, we go back. How many people have already crossed the border illegally? We've even had a couple of people saying that they've purposely come here. There was a viral clip that went like a couple months ago, or a guy saying, like, you don't know me, you will know me. Wait. And when they end up running the video, this guy's like a terrorist.
I remember that. Yeah,
he's here in this country. We don't know where he's at.
And straight to the camera too. Like,
think about that. And so it's I don't know. To my Zoes, out there, I don't agree this is fair. This is freaking crazy. And as a person, you know, where we come from bad backgrounds, bad countries, this just like, I don't know. When I saw this title, it just pissed me off. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on because we're kind of going long here.
Sure.
We're going to touch on 2 or 3 more topics. This next one, because Trump media stock sinks to post-merger low.
I'm sorry?
Trump media stock sinks to post-merger low. So, if you don't know, Donald Trump, he has a platform called True Social, which most people don't use. Most people don't even know it's out there.
This is what he created like So he could have a platform after
So
he
he
got
can
banned
speak.
from Twitter or
Correct. On
X.
Facebook and stuff.
Right.
And it went through the transition period where now he listed it on the stock market. It's public.
Mm.
And the left went crazy because, they've been trying to like defund, Donald Trump, get him in jail, take his assets. And the dude just keeps coming up with ways to come up money. I find it funny because it's a CNN article, and I'm also an investor in the company. Like, not like hey, I know Trump. No, like I put $1,000. I was like, yeah,
Okay.
maybe something happens, maybe it doesn't. But all stocks do this, right? So whenever a stock is announced, that first couple of days, 3-4 days a week, it just takes off, and then it settles back down. It's normal.
Yeah, the buzz is over, and
So yeah, those $300 I made that first week, I've already lost them back to my $1,000. All right, so it's normal, but I find it funny because one of the things I do on the research when I'm looking at the stories, I like to go everywhere: Fox News, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, to be a little fair to everybody.
yeah, get a little.
And it's always funny where you find these places like CNN where, man, they can't just take their foot out their ass. They can't just not be political. Can't just report a story and just say what's actually going on instead of like keep trashing this guy.
Right.
You that you live here in Miami, do you see Trump as somebody who is like a savior, or do you see him like as a cultural figure?
Definitely not as a savior. But I don't know. I have some mixed feelings about him. Well, what I will say is in 2016, I definitely did not like him. I was very worried about
Who did you vote for?
I voted for
Hillary.
Yeah, excuse me, Hillary. But
I've confessed that I did it too.
it was a vote more of against Trump, and I was very worried about some of his language is really inflammatory. Like when we had never seen anything like that before, and it ended up being the case that a lot of the things that he was talking about he didn't really end up doing, which was like, thank God. And I was really hoping that it was going to be like a wake up call to the Democratic Party. And it didn't really seem like it was. Like they really betrayed their more progressive base. And they really just kind of doubled down on the same kind of talking points that they were already sticking to before. And that was disappointing for me. And at the end of the day, I didn't feel that Trump's presidency was some sort of great calamity or anything like that, but I don't like him as a figurehead. Like I don't like him as like, this guy represents my country. Like he doesn't have that statement quality to him.
And I think that's where most people get lost with Trump, at least because the exact same thing happened to me. Like I said, in 2016, I voted for Hillary because I was like, everything that was being talked about this guy is like brash. This guy is not presidential. This guy talks too much. He insults everybody, But the more I dug into him and I actually started like seeing if what he was saying was true or not, now I just feel like, okay, this guy is clearly somebody that has been around the party for a very, very long time. He's been around these people for a long time. And now that he's like throwing them under the bus, they're also throwing him under the bus. But most of the stuff that he said and done has been true and good.
Mm.
The guy's a New Yorker. Whoever doesn't know New Yorkers are loudmouth. They think they're like the most strongest. I'm gonna bust you up. I'm gonna beat you up. I know this because I went to that transition period in New York. Everybody in New York thinks you're tough. And so I think a lot of people lose, faith in Trump is they just hear him like speak and they don't actually see what he's doing behind doors, how he negotiates.
Right.
How he actually gets stuff done. I feel like the way he talks, it's just like a negotiating, it's just like a show.
Mm.
Like I'll look strong in the front end and the back is like, let's get this done, okay? We don't want this to happen anymore. He's very soft in the back end.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, and that's probably the case. I mean, he was actually in show business for a long time. He knows how to work a crowd and how to get ratings. I mean, he literally went through that in a very real way. So it wouldn't surprise me at all that that's literally just about getting his ratings, being seen, no publicity is bad publicity kind of stuff. And then, who knows what he's actually like in the Oval Office. I don't, to be honest. But yeah, I just have a pretty whatever kind of view about him. Like, it's not who I would have wanted, but not the end of the world. I feel the same way about Biden. It's like, They're just very lukewarm candidates for me in general. They don't really stir anything in me that's like, this is like, I would follow that guy. You know what I mean? That's what I'm missing.
Yeah, I think they're like polar opposites, actually. And the part of the reason why I think we don't identify anymore in politics is because these people are already pre-picked for us. Like people are not really getting the opportunity to invest into somebody that we think is important. They just kind of like regurgitate every 4 years somebody they already picked behind closed doors. Here it is. These are your two choices. You have no choice. And so that's why it becomes like this crazy fight, you know, between a lunatic for some people and just like a near left resident for other people, you know. So
yeah, nobody's ever gonna really be happy. The one thing that I really would love to see with our presidential politics at the very least is to have some kind of, you know, spending cap for a campaign. Like, I mean, that definitely went out the window with Citizens United and all that, but if it wasn't really about how much money you could raise and it really everybody was like capped off at a certain point, a very reasonable number, that would make a much more interesting election, I think, with a lot more viable candidates. You know, to have, this is it. Like, your presidential election can only cost $10 million, so to speak. I don't know if that's a feasible number or not, but you know what I'm trying to say. That's something that I think this country really needs.
I think that
So we're not
term
just
limits
throwing
for
dollars
people in government as well.
And that term limits for congressmen. Congressmen should not be a career. Congressmen should be like, I did my stint in service.
There you go.
Just
I
the
agree.
way you did
I
your
agree.
stint, like in the military or something like
agree.
that. You know, like that's how it ought to be.
But it won't, because they're making too much money on it. And when people are making too much money on something, you have the cataclysmic event.
Well,
and
who would
just
vote
everybody
for the
gets
law that puts them out of their career, right? Like, why would you vote for yourself to be put out? You know, that doesn't even. It's like structurally built
It has
in.
to be like an executive order or something, I feel like.
Yeah.
All right, so last thing.
We can hope.
I found this little video interesting, which is bad-wielding homeowner catches porch pirate by setting trap, video shows. So this is a Fox News video. Yeah. So it's New York, of course. We go back to New York. New York seems like they want to be in the center of controversy this whole year.
So this guy was just like, I wonder if he had packages stolen from himself before, and then he was like, you know what? I'm gonna leave one out, and I'm gonna be ready.
Dude, it has
Imagine
to be.
calling off for work for this. You're like, hey, I can't make it today because, well, you'll find out in the news at 6 o'clock.
Look at this. The guy just casually, you know, picking the package. I mean, the balls, bro. And not only that, the balls, but you have to have done this multiple times. The only thing missing, I wish this dude would actually hit him with a bat.
Oh, man.
He doesn't hit him. He just basically catches him and holds him up until...
So was he waiting there with his wife, too, it seems like?
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah. He's like, babe, we're going to catch her. We're going to catch him. Oh,
I think that's just like pure decency, man. We don't have that decent feeling for our neighbors and our citizens anymore. I feel like we've lost that.
Yeah, man.
And we really need to start, you know, one of the things that, weirdly enough, I've started doing after my 30s is giving respect to like my common man. I feel like men, for the most part, we're always competing with each other. And we forgot that the guy you're competing against he also has a family. He also has to wake up early. He also has to bust his butt. He also has this feeling, am I doing enough in my life?
Yeah.
And so we've lost that kind of kind gesture of, hey, how you doing, man? Let me open your door. Can I get you this? You know, thank you for your service if you're in military. And I try to do this every day whenever I see somebody, even if I don't know you. And I just, hopefully, more people will tune in and do that. You know, a common person, a man you don't know whatsoever, you know, a construction worker, you know, somebody doing electricity, somebody where you know they're struggling and they're working, just say thank you. It's like the weirdest thing. And they won't even expect it, but it gives them such a
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to pass on, man. I totally agree. Men everywhere need more of brotherhood and that shared, like, you know, experience of being a man and stuff like that. I mean, you read about it all the time. People are being separated, and there's a lot of lonely men. A lot of lonely men. It's not good. It's not good. So yeah, man, to just be able to touch people like that randomly here and there probably goes a long way. That's a beautiful thing.
I agree, and hopefully we do more. So before we wrap this up, anything else you want to touch as far as like an ongoing project or where people can find you. Obviously, we're gonna share your socials. But any events that you have coming up that maybe you wanna go ahead and promote so people can find tickets or
Yeah, absolutely. So I have another musical project that I hadn't mentioned earlier. It's still not super public yet, but it's called Gather Round. And it's like an inclusive musical experience. It's very improvisational and spiritual in nature. We just recorded an album, and we're going to be doing our first live experience, most likely on May 11th at the Miami Beach Congregational Church.
Okay.
It's going to be a really nice experience. It's kind of thing where you're going to be right up in with the musicians, almost on stage, and even mixed in on stage. It's going to be a really beautiful thing. So I wanted to plug that. Also, again, check out my single Agüita de Coco, on Spotify. We're Lotus Collective Music, and on IG at Lotus Collective Music. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Julian, for being a guest. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hopefully, the next time we talk, you're so busy that I have to make it out to you. So,
yeah,
that's always. I always like seeing people succeed, man. It's like I don't know. It's like a joyous thing seeing somebody try and make something of themselves.
Appreciate that, Lou. Thanks.
So thank you so much, and see you around. All right, guys. So make sure to like the video, leave a comment. A lot of these topics are obviously very controversial, so give us your opinion. Even if you disagree with me, I love hearing what you guys have to say. No answer is wrong. I think it just adds to the conversation that we need to have, so we can start treating each other more fairly instead of just blasting each other online. So have a good one. Have a great weekend. See you guys next time.